What's up, guys? Adam back in with RV Returners. This time it's kind of like a special video. I figured I should make a video for what I played at Nationals. Just go over the deck, why I made the choice, go through the cards, why specific cards are in there and whatnot. And just reasonings on why I played the deck. Yeah, so let's go ahead and kick it off with the forwards. So the first forward that I decided to play, which might seem weird to a lot of people, is 2 of the legendary Maria. So in testing, this card did really good for me. It helps protect some forwards. The last ability where she can reduce the damage by 3k becomes super relevant, especially against decks like Turbo and stuff, as long as I have the CP to pay for it, as well as when things are trying to just outright kill my Lumas. The second ability became pretty relevant. Like if forwards were able to reach the 9k mark, and I only had the 2 Cactuars out, it would get that last 1k on Luma. As well as sometimes if I'm able to draw enough cards to reduce Thaumaturges down to 1k, she just wipes out a couple Thaumaturges, which is really, really nice. And then the first ability, not super relevant, but I am running one guy. So sometimes she could just buff that guy by 2k. That didn't happen very often, but it would happen on occasion. And she was just all around really good for me in testing. And she even won me a game or 2 at Nats. Yeah, then after Maria we got Y'shtola. She's just a really strong forward. Was able to stop auto abilities, which is not something a lot of cards can do, as well as cancel summons just to be overall annoying, and she can't take damage, so against Mono Lightning you gotta slam this card down, and it's really good. She did help me in my Mono Lightning matchup that I had, even though I ended up losing that game. Maybe I should have put a third one of her in here. She did help a lot and was great throughout the day, but yeah, I mean, she's just a great card, in Earthwind and in any deck that she's in. Yeah, and then you also got Barbrisha here. She's just a really solid forward. Is able to reduce someone's power down after it's already dealt damage, what can kill it. Puts it in range of Cactuar most of the time unless they have an Anthem. It's going to make everything susceptible to a Luma ping for the most part. So yeah, I mean, she's just great. I can't really think off the top of my head any great plays that I really did with her at Nats, but she's never bad. And then you got the infamous Luma. Not much really to be said about this guy. 3 of this guy in every Earthwind deck. There's really no reason not to, as long as your focus is around him and Cactuar and all that stuff. I mean, he's just an insane card. Probably one of the most busted cards in the format right now. So yeah, I mean, I would never cut below 3 at all. Then we got Guy. He's kind of a tech card slot for me. I did have an Opus 1 Cecil in here, who was testing really well. That was before I put the legendary Cecils on the deck. And then once the legendary Cecils were in the deck, I kind of took him out because I didn't want to be like locked in. If I drew that and I had the legendary Cecil out, I wouldn't be able to play it. And Guy works really well with Maria, which is kind of nice. He did come into play in my Turbo matchup and was really good. Still lost, but I mean, he was very good at applying pressure in that matchup. I could see him coming out. I do regret not having the Opus 1 Cecil. I wish that I would have had it in some of my matchups. I think it would have been really, really good. But again, I went with Guy. Yeah, so you could totally take him out of the deck. I don't think he's like 100% necessary, but he's not terrible. Shadow Lord is the next card. He was really great for me in testing as well. Really good against like Turbo if I could actually play him. Great against like Vice Kings. You could get this kind of domino effect on the board that felt really, really good when it went off. And you could use some cool things with Diabolos and such. A lot of people forget about that last ability, and it can cause like some weird interactions. Most people just think of him, they just think that he's going to kill a bunch of 2-drops, but actually, if you can start pinging stuff off with him on the board, you can, like I said, you can create this domino style effect, and whiteboard's pretty clean. And then he's got Brave, so he's able to pressure decks like Turbo and such. So just an overall good card. Was also good for me on the weekend. Didn't get to do a lot of the cool stuff that I got to do in testing, but he was really good against Vice Kings the couple times that I was able to play it. Yeah, then again, kind of like Luma, we got Wool here. Just a forward that he's gonna be there at all times. If you're playing Earth and you're playing forwards, this guy's probably in your deck. I could see going down to 2. It wouldn't be terrible, but with the amount of Turbo that I knew I was gonna see, and he's just a very good card to slam against Turbo, they have to have an answer because you're able to actually block and pressure them, and it forces them to like party attack unless they get to slam their Squall down. So again, he was good for me in the Turbo matchup. Good for me just in general. He requires them to have to remove him, or else you just get all these advantageous attacks, and you can also ignore EX Burst, which is a big deal. Not much can be said about the card that hasn't already been said. It's just an insane card, and there's a reason why it's the most expensive card right now in the game. Next up is Zidane. Again, a really strong card. He just demands removal because if you play this guy early, he's going to start stripping your hand. Sometimes reactivating Cactuars and stuff. But most of the time he just reactivates himself when he gets that discard just to be able to like attack and block. Just a good, annoying forward. I was running 3 at one point and then cut back to 2 just because I didn't feel like I needed the third one all the time. He wasn't all that great in Nats in general for me, but that doesn't really take anything away from the power level of the card. I think he's still insane. I still don't regret playing him. Just getting like a wall in line where he's just swinging over the top when they don't expect it, and you're just getting gas out of their hand. He's really good against Vice Kings, ripping those like big heavy hitters out of their hand, like Genesis Avatar, like Nidhogg, things like that. And you know, he's annoying. He can't be targeted, so he's good against Lightning. Again, he didn't do super great things for me at Nats, but I couldn't see myself cutting him out of the deck. And my thought process going in was like, I thought Zidane and Luma were 2 of the best cards in the format right now, just to deal with, and very annoying, outside of like Turbo Ice and Vice Kings, right? And I wanted to play a deck that had them both, and that just seemed like a good idea to me. Then we got Cecil. I talked about him earlier a little bit. I mostly ran him because he's really good against Scions, we felt. And, you know, you come off the burst, a lot of times you're going to hit a lot of their relevant stuff. Gets rid of like nasty things like Thancred that are like really annoying for us to deal with, as long as they're on 4 damage, of course. And then late game, he's just really good. Sometimes you slam this guy down and you S on the stack and you're able to kill 2 things at one time, which feels great. But again, at Nats, it just felt like every time you'd flip off the top, it was always 1 damage too short, which felt terrible. And then I did get to cast him a couple times. It felt okay, mostly against Scions, like I said, killing Thancred. But like, I kind of regret putting in the full 3. Maybe go to 2 and 1, kind of like how I had originally. 2 of this guy, 1 of the small Cecil. Maybe just playing like a 1-of or something. But then you get the EX burst kind of becomes less relevant because it's less likely to hit. You can't really rely on it. Again, I think he's a really good card, and I think he's good in the meta right now. Just in my personal build, I kind of wish that I had maybe stuck to my guns a little bit more and put in another card. But I do think this guy's insane. Next up is going to be my Summons and Monster package. This might look a little weird to you at first, but it was through a lot of testing that we kind of finalized on this, and I don't hate it. You know, we couldn't really commit to a lot of things, but we wanted to be able to cover a lot of our bases. And first up, I had the Opus 4 Hecaton chair. It was okay for me in Nats. Like I didn't really cast it that much, so I went with a 1-1 split between this and Cactuar. A lot of us were on the fence between both of these cards that were running the Earth Wind list. Cactuar is able to deal with cards like Ash, like Zidane, and stuff like that without having to have a forward on the board, whereas this is better if you can get in those 2-for-1 situations with like Luma and stuff per se. I didn't really cast it too much. That doesn't mean it's a bad card. Again, I think it's great, but maybe I wish that I had just committed to the 2 Cactuars. I think that might have just been a better call overall. But again, it's another one of those. It's an insane card. It's really good. It's cheap, and you can cast it against Turbo, usually. And it doesn't feel bad. But again, at Nats, I just never really felt like I was using it enough. And then also a 1-of Chaos Walker. It was good for me. It hit off burst a couple times and felt really great. A lot of times you can't get over top of a forward, and you just need to straight up break it, and you really don't care what they drop. And then sometimes you have Zidane out and you attack, you see their hand. Okay, they don't really have anything, so now I can just safely do this. And that feels pretty good. Again, it was good. I like it as a 1-of, maybe even up it to 2. But I think it's great at 1 in this deck because we don't really have a lot of ways to mitigate the downside of the card. But it really helps to have that just break whatever we want to get rid of really pesky forwards. Yeah, then we got the Opus 1 Hecaton chair. Really good card in the meta right now. It kills a lot of good things. You got Alice, you got Devouts, any Anthem if people are running it. Star Sibyls, you know, if your opponent plays that before it untaps, you can go ahead and break that. It hits a lot of really high value targets, and usually you'll get your value out of it. Also like Sid 2, things like that. Really good against those things. At first, our first build, or at least my first build of this deck, did have Vanille and Delete in it. So we were running a lot more of the Hecaton chairs, but then it just kind of felt too clunky and cards didn't feel as good, so we ended up going another direction. But we didn't want to lose these chairs because in the matchups where they're important, they're just really, really important. So I thought 2 was the sweet spot here. I used it a fair amount, again, at the tournament. Usually hit things like Alice, a couple Devouts. and every time it just felt really good. Yeah, then we have the other card that I was talking about earlier, the Cactuar Summon. We ran it to kill things, like I said earlier, Ashe, Zidane, really high primary targets, and it didn't require you to have a forward on the board, and you could easily reach those values using things like Shantou and Chaos. So it was really good for us in testing, and we liked it a lot. It was definitely a card that I undervalued when reviewing it first, and I'm starting to come around on it and see the potential of like why it's good depending on what the meta shows. Then next up we got Diabolos, probably the best wind summon in the game. Actually, probably not probably, I think it is. Just was way too much. A lot of times it's just free. Lets you break a big guy, lets you turn something into 1k, which is very relevant in this deck. You can do a lot of cool things with Shadow Lord, like I said earlier. And then, you know, a lot of times you're just going to do this and then ready your backups. Like, you're going to pick an option and ready your backups, and it just feels really good. I do wish that I had made room for 3. I think 3 would have been the correct call. We were trying to cut a lot of corners, I think, and I think cutting one of these might have been a mistake. Primarily against my Mono Lightning matchup, I really wished I would have had this because I had to stare down all 3 Estinians, and I got dumpstered. That just felt terrible. Chaos Walker was able to save me off the EX Burst to let me last a little bit longer than I should have, but I was definitely missing not having a third of this card for sure. So that, yeah, if you're going to play this deck, I recommend going 3 of this card for sure. And then the last in this group, again, I don't feel like much needs to be said. I don't think you ever want to run less than 3 Cactuars in your deck. It's just too good. It's really impressive with Dada Luma. Both abilities are relevant. Most of the time you're just going to ping something for 1k. It combos with your Barbarisha. It combos with your Diabolos. It combos with Shadow Lord. It just does so much. It's maybe the best monster in the game. It's pretty insane what it does once it's out for 1 little CP. The only thing that's hard is, like, if you want early game, you want to pitch these to play forward, so it feels really bad because you're not running Urion J in this particular build. So you got to make sure you hold on to those, and because you want to get at least 2 down so that you can put the oppression on your opponent, and it makes them hard to even play forwards. And then last but not least, we got the backups here. Let's start off with Chaos. Pretty self-explanatory. We're running Camelot, so it just makes it easier for us to color fix. That's usually the go-to option off him. Unless we really need Shadow Lord in that pinch. Again, he makes any CP that we want, which is just great. So not much else to be said here. I will say that a lot of these backups, it was hard to narrow down some of the numbers, but I'm pretty confident on what we came down to in the end. Then we got Moogle 11. This card is just insane. It lets you search for your deck for any card as long as you have another copy. It's searchable by Star Sybil. A lot of times you just leave this up. If you hit a Sybil on EX Burst, you're like, cool, I'll go get whatever card I want. You can do some really insane cards with one of the backups I'll talk about in a second. And again, just being able to search for any card is crazy good. You can wait for your opponent to do something, and as long as you got another one of these guys in your hand, you go ahead and tutor it out, and then just play that card. You just search for your answer at that moment in time. It's so good. Probably one of the best openers you can have is this, and Simi maybe turn 1 if you can. I mean, if you're playing Turbo, I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're kind of getting cards out of your hand and making it easier for them to make you discard the rest of your hand. But if you know you're not playing against Turbo, this Simi and then next turn like Star Sybil is just probably the best opener you can have. Maybe like having Chaos in there too would be super insane. But just getting this guy online early and then starting that stupid value train up where you're just going to search and search and search is just insane. And then, yeah, I just mentioned her a second ago, Semi, Lafina. The last line of text can be relevant. Sometimes you don't mind paying that 3 to deal an extra damage to Luma to put a 4k somewhere else, or maybe you don't have your Cactuar, but you play your Barb and you just want to get rid of a target. It can be very good there. However, the first line of text is the most relevant. Just making your Star Symbols cost 3 is just really unfair. You're just going to keep playing them and then breaking it to play whatever forward you want, almost at a discount, and then going to get more Moogles to search for more cards. Or you can go get your Cam to start that value train. It does so much. It does so much for other cards that just makes this card really insane, and it's probably one of the best. It is the best turn 1 backup that you could play in this deck for sure. Then we got White Mage. Again, this was a meta call that I made. A lot of recursion going on, especially with like Ice Water, and this can kind of disrupt that. You can get rid of their devout target on the stack. Mostly that's going to be Renoa. You can get rid of their Vikings if they try to get greedy, play like pitch 1 turn 1 to play a Layla the next turn. You could then remove their Viking from the game, and then later on pay one, break it to remove something else from the game, and that can be really relevant. If you run into Urion J Mill, it kind of just shuts that deck down. I mean, casting a Phoenix and not being able to get their target back just feels terrible. A lot of times the player just won't even cast it unless they can do something else to force you to bait the white mage out. And even then, that's going to get really, really expensive. I think this little guy is pretty good right now. I was running more. We went down to 1 just for, to put other backups in. And I don't really regret it. It came into play a couple times, mostly against Ice Water, and it felt pretty great. So I think this is definitely a really, really good backup. So then Erath, this was a card we kind of put in a little last minute. It was toward the end of our testing, and she was insane. Just having Mog 11 and then this card upright, going into your opponent's turn with a Mog in hand, you could always threaten Planetary Protector even if Erath wasn't in your hand. You can get in these really crazy Luma wars in the mirror and then just go ahead and cancel it. It's just a really good card overall, and I don't regret putting in 3 of them. Then we got Miner, only 2 here. I kind of wanted to fit 3 in because it did feel really good. You can get things back like Erath and Mog and just do it again, which felt really dumb late game. Sometimes early game you just got this guy down and then he got you back like a Luma or a wall, which also felt pretty amazing. Again, just an all-around good card. One of the better backups in the deck, I think. I would have liked to fit 3 in, but I wanted to make space for a lot of my other tech choices as far as backup goes. So he didn't quite make the cut to 3, but I don't regret only running 2. So after that, we got a Jido Margy. It's just a one-of. I went back and forth taking this in and out of the deck. The second ability is what we use it for, just to kind of get our summons back. So our one-ofs that we had casted, now we can get those one-ofs back, cast them again, get back Diabolus, cast it again, that kind of thing. When it was played, it felt okay. I didn't really get to cast it at all at Nats. Just never felt like I had the time. I was constantly getting rushed down, or I just had better backup lines that I built and I didn't have room to put her in. So she got pitched for mana. It is relevant that she's a target for Star Sybil. If you've already kind of found everything else, or you just know you're going to need her to get summons back, you can get it and then play it. But it is stuck. Like, once it's out, we have no way to get rid of the backup. So once this is out, it's out. And you got to, play your rest of your backups pretty smartly so that you don't fill your backup row and you can't get rid of something in order to play something else. So you could definitely take this card out. It didn't do a whole lot for me, but again, I understand why we put it in the final list. But maybe, looking back, maybe I would have taken this out. Again, this is another one of those cards in Star Sybil, obviously, that we don't really need to say too much about. There's a reason 3's in the deck. It's insane when it costs 3. It searches out Mog, it searches out Cam. It just does a lot. And like I said, most time you're paying 3 for this, which is insane. And when it comes off the top, you just go search for whatever you want, basically, assuming that you have a Mog out. So, yeah, not much more to be said. Always run 3. So now we're nearing the end. This is Vinphilia. Again, in testing, she was insane. A lot of times gave us more gas for the end and like things like the Water-Ice matchup. But in that, I just really didn't get to play her that much. And when I did play her, she didn't feel very good because I was playing her like turn 1 because I had no other backup options, which you can do. And I mean, I guess there's that she can do that, and it doesn't feel super awful, but it doesn't feel great. A lot of time you want to play her late game to restock your hand back with really high value threats. And then sometimes her last ability is relevant. You can kill a Chaos or a Cosmos, as well as like a Camelot and stuff like that. Again, I think she was just a one-up, so it was fine. But I could definitely see cutting her for something else for sure. And then, yeah, last but not least, we got probably one of my favorite competitive cards in the game, and that's Shantou. I find myself, when I play in like a big event, I never play a deck that can't run this. I just like having that reset button, which is probably why I'm really excited about Sin in the next set coming forward. Again, she's only at a 2 of here. We had contemplated running to 1, but I just don't like it, because if it hits some damage, it feels terrible. But I do agree that it's really hard to run 3 in this deck, because a lot of times you don't need that hard reset, so you can just play 2, and she's also searchable by Star Sybil when you really, really need her. So it never really came into play that I wasn't running 3. I felt good at 2 all weekend. And again, like I said, I think you just want to play this card. When I play Earth, I like to run at least 1 just to have that panic button, even when it's not really meeting the needs of the deck. Because sometimes you just want to hit that reset button in a game, and it feels really good. Yeah, so that wraps it up. That was my Nats deck. I don't regret taking it. I still think it's very strong. I I think it's a very good deck to play. It's just a very good archetype in general. If you want to see a deck that same archetype but finished a lot higher than me, look at David Cox's build. I believe he was the highest placing Earth Wind deck, and he is going to Worlds. His deck was pretty cool. A lot of similar cards to mine, but he also had some differences in there too. There was a few in the top 31, but I believe only one made top 8. Again, it's still super strong, and Luma and Cactuar is not going anywhere. Wool is definitely not going anywhere. So it's definitely an archetype that you could play in the future, and I don't see it disappearing unless some kind of rotation happens. So let me know what you liked in the deck. Let me know if you hate the deck. You know, like, favorite, subscribe, all that jazz. And then look forward to more of our videos in the future. See you guys later. Peace.